forgetting to do that. We're talking about Buy an Umbrella, and Buy an Umbrella is a project that, depending on where you are, I'm either going to have you do Guess Who or Buy an Umbrella. All right, it'll be basically your last project. And this one is pretty complex. All right, this one is where you have an inventory of umbrellas and you are going to create filters for that inventory. You will allow the user to buy an umbrella based on the filters that they see. They'll choose one, and then you'll walk them through that process. Now, for this particular program, a lot of it is already written for you. The stuff that is not relevant to using dictionaries or lists is already written for you. It's up to you to use dictionaries and lists appropriately in order to be able to demonstrate your programming knowledge. So here's the overview of the program. This is what it's going to display, and it will mostly display all of that for you already. All right, this part is already written. So it'll say, welcome to Umbrellas Unlimited, your online market. We have over 100 umbrellas for sale. You already will be provided a list of all that information about the umbrellas. And it says, use these commands to navigate our site. So those are the commands. Some of them are implemented, some of them are not. So it will start by loading that inventory of umbrella models. So the Replit program, the Replit project that you'll see has those files associated. And when you say next, then you will start to see a list of those umbrellas. And so it'll allow the user to browse, go next and previous, and also filter by adding filters, removing filters, or modifying filters. And those filters will change the kinds of umbrellas that the user can see. Whether it's automatic or manual open, what color it is, how many stars, like a price range. All right, and finally, the user should be given the option to purchase that particular umbrella. So these milestones are ways to make sure that you are doing what you need to in the order that you need to. So the first milestone is actually pretty straightforward, where you are making sure that the program is printing the welcome message and the prompt to take action, but it can't actually take any actions yet. That's a way for you to go, yep, I'm here, check. The second milestone is that the program can load the inventory of umbrella models from the text file, which I just said I pretty much have done for you, and print out a nice representation of the top 10. And that part is not quite done for you yet, so that would be something that you actually have to do. And then the program supporting the actions next and previous. That's again something that you're going to need to do. Number 4, the program should support the buy action, allowing the users to select one of the shown models and purchase it. So again, buy. And by the way, if you're confused as to what you should be taking notes on, as I'm explaining things, write down what you need to in order to best remember what you should be doing. So for milestone 4, the buy action, you need to do a couple things for the buy. You need to allow the user to select one of the models. So it's not just you hit buy and it buys everything that's on the screen or something. You need to allow the user to select which one of the models is currently being listed, and then purchase it. So that purchasing piece needs to be where it gets moved into their cart, essentially. Milestone number 5, the program applies what's called a hard-coded filter. and then displays just the subset of umbrellas that match that filter. So that's where you are going to actually allow the user to specify a color, or going back for a second, a number of stars, a price range, maybe some sort of keyword in here, like it could be a brand like Samsonite Gusbuster Totes, automatic or manual open. And that's where you can imagine you're going to have to do a find. All right, we've been practicing finding a certain word in a string, so you're going to need to use that knowledge. And then the sixth milestone is supporting add, remove, and modify filters. So not just applying the filter, but allowing the user to add a filter, remove a filter, and modify a filter. And this is functionality that exists on a lot of modern websites. If you've ever done a search for a particular item when shopping, then you know that there are filters that you can add, remove, and modify on a lot of websites. Since we are working in the text-based world, Python can also be applied to the web world, can be applied to completely graphical applications. But we're just working in the text-based world. Think of, you can be thinking in your mind about how you would do this on a website. Obviously, it wouldn't be text-based. You wouldn't type A, R, or M. You would probably type in a word. It would add the filter as like some text. You'd be able to click an X on that text in order to remove it. Maybe if you clicked on it, you'd be able to modify it. It would come up with a prompt that would say, what do you want to modify this filter to? But I just want you to keep that in mind, that this is a very real application. This is not just an invented problem for you to solve. As you are working on either this or the Guess Who program, all right, again, when you get there, I'll tell you which one to work on. I want you to focus on, and this is what I keep telling you as you're working on your projects, plan your code, plan your code, plan your code. Plan your variables, your functions, any dictionaries you're using, any lists you're using, any strings you're using, the general structure, you know, what this is going to do, what that is going to do. Use comments, obviously, to do all that planning. And when you use comments to do your planning, write your code immediately after those comments. Those comments will stay in your program. Don't get rid of those comments, because those comments tell you in the future you or someone else, if they're looking at your code, what this is supposed to do. So a future you looks at that and goes, you know what? I can do this way more efficiently now. I know so much more about Python. What this is supposed to do, I can do in a different way. If you didn't have that comment in there, you might go, I'm not quite sure what this is supposed to do. This could be doing a couple different things. So you really want to plan out your code with comments before you write a word of code, before you write one if statement, before you write one function. Now, this piece about using pseudocode. Pseudocode is basically what you've already been doing when you say, if this is equal to such and such in words, right? It's not real code. You know that in real code, you'd use like equal signs and things like that. So pseudocode is talking it through, but it's kind of close to actual Python code. It's just not all the technical pieces of it, so that you're focused on writing like English-like code and then worried about the actual coding later. All right, so, and also working on planning your time, outlining your daily goals and milestones. don't sit here and go, well, I'm going to do milestones 1 through 5 today. That's unrealistic. You might not even have an idea how to accomplish milestone number 4, so you can't very well say, I'm going to get 1 through 5 done. Be realistic about your goal setting. Challenge yourself, but be realistic, all right? And don't be afraid to spend way more time planning than coding. The golden rule of coding, of programming, is 80-20. 80% of your time planning, 20% of your time coding. If you're like, you know what, I think I've planned enough, I really don't feel like planning out this last piece, or whatever, I didn't include a lot of detail, but I'll figure it out as I go along, you will end up flipping that. You'll end up spending only 20% of your time planning and 80% of your time coding. And I know it won't be intentional, but you will chase your tail in the coding part. You will end up spending so much time trying to figure out, like, what did I write up here? And why won't this work? I've tried this a dozen times. It doesn't work, Mr. Dutton. It doesn't work. Well, I can't tell you how many times I've heard from you guys and other students, it doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Well, it's not that it doesn't work. It's that it's doing exactly what you told it to. And what you told it to do is incorrect. And that's incorrect because you didn't plan it out. So sometimes you write incorrect code because you don't know better, because you haven't used a particular function before, or you make an error, or you make a logical error, and those are totally understandable. But what I'm seeing a lot of right now, and it's from all of you, what I'm seeing a lot of right now is I'm seeing a lot of, this should work, and it doesn't, and you're like, but it doesn't work, and well, but that's not how Python works. That isn't the syntax of Python. That isn't how Python is precisely working. It's how it works in your head, but what you're trying to do, you haven't planned out yet. And so you have to be super specific about each step. This project, this Get an Umbrella project, is going to expose any issues that you have with not planning, because there are so many moving parts, and when you see the code, you're going to get intimidated because you're going to look at it and be like, oh my gosh, there's already a lot here. So that's when it becomes important to solve all of those little problems, all right? I wouldn't assign you a project if I didn't think you can solve it. So that means that you need to not be frustrated, work on the planning, and then do the coding. 80% planning, 20% coding. I guarantee it will help you in the long run. I didn't start off as a programmer that way. I started off as a programmer the exact same way that a lot of you guys are trying to start, which is like, let me just code it. And then pull all-nighters on simple programs because I just kept getting caught up in myself and not spending the time planning. I don't want you to make that same mistake. So, any questions about the Umbrella project or the Guess Who project?